lessons 3, 4, 5, and 6, the next 4 lessons are going to be introductory, let's say a first look at these covenants of promise, from beginning with Noah, Abraham, Moses, and David. And I want to stress that we can't possibly cover the wealth of these covenants in one lesson, but this is a first look. It's not our last word on these for sure, but it's a first look at the general contours of these 4 covenants of promise. And as we look at them and the promise that's involved, we're going to see some important characteristics of life in the covenant. We're going to uncover important characteristics that refer to all the covenants, but we're going to kind of go through them one at a time. And the first one, lesson 3, a promise of creation, is going to look at God's covenant with Noah. And this lesson, you're going to see a lot of pairs. Keep your eye out for these pairs. If you can understand these pairs, we're going to understand the nature of covenant relationship well. The first pair you're going to look at in this lesson is the relationship between covenant and grace. One of the things that we see throughout the Bible when God's talking about the covenant, he always calls it my covenant. Not your covenant, but my covenant. God takes ownership of the covenant, and he is the initiator. It's solely by God's grace and election that covenant relationship comes into being. And so we see that with Noah. Noah finds grace with God, and right after that, God says, I'm going to make my covenant with you, Noah. And so we see this relationship. And we also see, in terms of the promise, we see another pair in how Noah's story, the flood story, and the aftermath, it parallels the creation story. And we see the relationship of covenant with creation. And this is an important point just to keep in mind, and we've talked about it a little bit already, but the idea of covenant, it's embedded in Israel's story. It's not just an abstract idea, but it's a relationship that's embedded in the story of Israel as she progresses through the Old Testament to Christ. And so here in the story of Noah, what we're seeing is really God's commitment to creation. The blessing and the fruitfulness and the life that was in creation was lost through sin. And it's interesting that it's after the fall. It's in the context of sin and curse and violence, the opposite of blessing and fruitfulness and peace. We see the world go downhill until it reaches rock bottom with Noah, and God is going to destroy the world for the sake of creation, for the sake of continuing a relationship with his creation. And so what we see in Noah is God restoring that creation that was lost. In the flood, the old is washed away and a new creation begins. And it ends with God restoring blessing and fruitfulness and reversing that curse of the ground that we see in Genesis 3. And so in the story of Noah, we see how not only that God's covenant comes into being, but the whole story of redemptive history is underway.